Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really foundational area of natural language processing. We're talking about how we train text encoders. These are, the engines behind so much modern AI. They're critical for understanding text, classifying documents, finding information, answering your questions. Really fundamental stuff. Now, traditionally, the standard way to pre-train these has been masked language modeling, or MLM. You probably think of BERT-style models here, solid, reliable. But recently, there's been a new challenger coming from maybe an unexpected place. These huge decoder models. They were originally built for generating text using causal language modeling, CLM. Think predicting the next word. And people started repurposing them as encoders, and well, they got some pretty impressive results. So that sparks a big question, a real research puzzle. Are these gains from CLM models down to like an inherent advantage in how they're trained? Or is it maybe simpler? Are they just doing well because they're typically much, much bigger and trained on way more data? And that's exactly what our source material today digs into. It's a paper called Should We Still Pre-train Encoders with Masked Language Modeling? They really set out to test this.
That's right. And they took a very rigorous approach, very controlled. To really isolate the effect of the training method itself, they ran a huge set of experiments. We're talking 38 models trained in total, ranging from 210 million parameters up to a full billion. And then get this, over 15,000 fine-tuning and evaluation runs.
Wow.
Yeah, it adds up to something like 110,000 GPU hours, a massive compute effort. And crucially, all models were trained on the exact same data. 100 billion unique English tokens from the FineWeb-Edu dataset.
So a really level playing field.
Yes. The goal was a fair head-to-head comparison. Is MLM still the best way? Or does CLM, or maybe some mix, hold the key now?
Okay, so let's unpack that first big comparison, MLM versus CLM, straight up for pre-training encoders. What did these large-scale tests actually show? How did they perform on different kinds of tasks?
Well, what's fascinating, and maybe a little counter to some of the recent buzz, is that the study found MLM-free training generally gives you better performance across most standard text representation tasks anyway.
Well, interesting.
Particularly noticeable for things like sequence classification. So sentiment analysis on SST2 or natural language inference on MNLI, paraphrase detection on QQP, tasks needing whole sentence understanding, and also for question answering. Things like squad, record datasets. These tasks seem, well, pretty sensitive if you don't have bidirectional attention during pre-training.
Right. MLM looks both ways in the sentence. CLM only looks backwards.
And that full context seems really important for these broader comprehension tasks. MLM provides that naturally.
Okay, so MLM still seems to have strong footing for those core kind of high-level understanding tasks. But even within MLM, there's complexity, right? Like the masking ratio. How many words do you actually hide? Did they find like a magic number, a single best percentage?
No magic number, unfortunately. It's more nuanced than that. The experiments clearly showed there isn't one single optimal masking ratio. It really depends.
Depends on what.
Both the model size and the specific job you want the model to do later the downstream task. For instance, the bigger models they tested, the 610 million and 1 billion parameter ones, they tended to do better with higher masking ratios, maybe 20%, even 30%.
Okay.
Which kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Bigger models can maybe handle more missing information, learn more robustly. And then there's information retrieval. Tasks like searching through documents using MS Marco or MLTR datasets.
Yeah.
Those tasks consistently preferred higher masking ratios. It didn't matter what size the model was.
Huh. So for search, making it harder during pre-training helps.
Seems like it. But then contrast that with token-level tasks, like token classification or question answering where you pinpoint the answer span. For those, the smaller models actually did better with lower masking ratios. And the larger models showed this interesting U-shaped curve. They benefited from both low ratios and high ratios, but not so much the middle ground.
Wow, okay. That's a lot more complicated than just picking 15%. So much interaction between size, task, and that ratio. You mentioned token classification, though. Did the CLM models, the ones that usually lag behind, show any particular strengths there? Any surprises?
Yes, absolutely. That was a key finding. While CLM pre-trained models generally didn't do as well on sequence classification, QA, information retrieval, they were actually very competitive on token classification.
Okay.
Remember, CLM's whole job is predicting the next token. So it gets really good at understanding sequences at that fine-grained word-by-word level. Tasks like named entity recognition on ConLL or part-of-speech tagging on OntoNodes, where you're labeling individual words, CLM's strength there really shone through. In fact, at the 610 million parameter size, the The CLM models actually edged out the MLM models slightly on token classification.
So CLM isn't just a generator, it can build really strong token-level understanding, a different kind of strength.
Precisely. It suggests causal pre-training definitely has value for certain types of representations.
Okay, this is where, for me, it starts to get really interesting from a practical standpoint. Beyond just the final scores, how did MLM and CLM stack up in terms of efficiency? How fast did they learn? And also stability. We all know fine-tuning can be tricky. How stable were these models during that crucial phase?
Right. Efficiency and stability are huge in the real world. And the study had some clear results here. Looking at data efficiency, CLM comes out looking very good, especially early on.
How so?
Well, CLM consistently outperformed MLM on downstream tasks during the initial phase of pre-training, say the first 10,000 to 20,000 steps. And remember, for token classification, it stayed ahead right to the end. This suggests CLM kind of learns faster or maybe saturates earlier. You get good representations with fewer steps.
That sounds like a big deal if you have limited compute or maybe less data to train on.
It really is. It potentially makes powerful representation learning more accessible, more efficient, maybe good as a warm-up phase even if you plan to do MLM later.
Okay, faster learning curve for CLM, particularly early on. What about that fine-tuning stability you mentioned? The headache part.
Yes, the headache part. Anyone who's fine-tuned these models knows the pain of finding the right learning rate.
Oh, yeah. Too high, it diverges. Too low, it takes forever or gets stuck.
Well, the study found that the models pre-trained with CLM were significantly less sensitive to the choice of learning rate during fine-tuning.
Really? So they're more forgiving?
Seems that way.
Yeah.
Compared to the MLM pre-trained models, they were more robust. You had a wider range of learning rates that worked well. This suggests CLM pre-training gives you a more stable starting point, a better initialization for that final tuning step.
That's huge for practicality. Less fiddling with hyperparameters, more reliable results. Saves time, saves frustration.
Definitely a big plus for CLM in terms of, let's say, developer experience and reliability.
Okay, so we have this picture now. MLM is strong on broad understanding, especially for sequence and QA tasks. But CLM is more data efficient early on, more stable to fine-tune, and even excels at token-level tasks. They both have clear pros and cons. So what does this mean for actually building the best possible encoder? Do we have to choose, or is there a way to combine them, get the best of both?
That's the logical next step, right? And the researchers explored exactly that. They looked at combining strategies. They tested two main scenarios: training a new model entirely from scratch, and taking an existing pre-trained model and training it further, which they call continued pre-training.
Let's start with from scratch. If you have the budget to train a new encoder, what's the best recipe?
For training from scratch, they found a two-stage approach worked best, especially if you have a fixed compute budget. You start with CLM pre-training for a certain number of steps, and then you switch to MLM pre-training for the rest.
Ah, a sequence. CLM first, then MLM.
Yes. And the CLM then MLM combination consistently did better on downstream tasks than just doing MLM for the whole time. They experimented with the split. How much CLM versus how much MLM? The sweet spot seemed to be giving CLM somewhere between 25% and 75% of the total training steps. A 50-50 split also worked very well.
Interesting. And did starting with CLM have any other benefits?
It did. Models that went through that initial CLM phase actually showed lower sensitivity to the MLM masking ratio when they got to the second stage.
So the CLM warm-up made the later MLM training more robust, too.
It appears so. It kind of preconditions the model. So yeah, for new models, CLM followed by MLM seems like a very promising strategy.
That's a really powerful insight for anyone developing new foundation models. Don't just stick to MLM, maybe start with CLM. But what about leveraging models that are already out there? There are some incredibly powerful, huge CLM decoders available. Can we adapt those?
And that's the second scenario they tested. Continued pre-training, this is probably very relevant for many people. The finding here was quite striking. If you take an existing CLM pre-trained model, like a big open source decoder, and you apply MLM as a continued pre-training step, just run MLM training on it for a bit, that consistently worked better than taking an existing MLM model and just continuing to train it with more MLM.
Wait, so adapting a CLM model with some MLM beats continuing an MLM model?
Yes. This MLM adapted CLM model significantly closed the performance gap on tasks where MLM usually shines, like question answering and information retrieval. On sequence classification, actually ended up substantially outperforming the MLM model that just got more MLM training.
So it seems like the best path might be to grab a good off-the-shelf CLM model and then give it like an MLM finishing school.
That's a good way to put it. And the research suggests you don't even need a huge amount of that MLM finishing school. They found that even just 12,000 steps of continued MLM pre-training on a CLM model could yield really strong results, often comparable to, or sometimes better than, much longer continued pre-training on an MLM-only model.
Okay, that feels like a major takeaway. The most effective, maybe efficient way to get a top-tier encoder today might be to leverage these existing massive CLM decoders and just adapt them with a bit of MLM.
The paper strongly suggests that yes, it's like getting a head start by using that powerful CLM base and then specializing it for encoder tasks with MLM, potentially getting state-of-the-art performance at a discounted price in terms of compute.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive has really shifted my perspective on encoder pre-training. It seriously challenges that old assumption that MLM is just the default, the only way to go for encoders. Instead, we're seeing CLM isn't just for generation. It brings real benefits in efficiency, stability, and these hybrid approaches, especially adapting existing CLM models, look incredibly promising.
Mhm. This study provides really solid empirical backing for this. It shows you can train encoders more efficiently, more effectively by moving beyond pure MLM. Whether it's that sequential CLM then MLM approach for new models or this MLM adaptation of existing CLM models, the evidence suggests these are better routes than just sticking with MLM alone.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Perhaps the future of building the very best text encoders isn't about starting from scratch with MLM anymore. Maybe it's about smart adaptation, taking these incredibly powerful, widely available decoder models that others have already spent huge resources training, and then strategically refining them with MLM to create encoders that are not only top performing, but also developed much more efficiently. It could really change the game for how we build these critical AI components.